In Lithuania's criminal history, there are few lawbreakers whose crimes have gained such wide resonance in society as Donatas Bitusha.
Even knowing that I'll only be released when I'm 46 years old, I definitely don't plan to work outside. I will continue stealing and continue committing crimes. If I get out now, I have nowhere to go. Where would I go? What would I do?
A 34-year-old repeat offender whose path from armed robberies and kidnappings to cold-blooded murder has left deep scars on the residents of Lithuania's city, Kretinga, and other nearby regions. We'll have an exclusive opportunity to meet a man for whom prison is just a temporary inconvenience before going back out and indulging in new crimes.
I have a total of about 14 or 15 convictions, and almost all of them are charges related to violence. I was released on June 12th, 2020, and already a month later, a corpse. That's how it happened.
A man who places no value on another's life and for whom committing crimes is like a thrill, while serving time in confinement is merely an interlude before getting back to freedom and committing new offenses. You'll understand this yourself when you get to know him better, and much more awaits you in the continuation of this video. Before we proceed with the video, allow me to introduce something truly extraordinary. Watch this. Bad grammar? Perfect text instantly. Need a translation? It understands every language. Or just tell it what to do. Easy. This tool has a high skill cap. It's like having writing superpowers that boosts your internet elo.
Mom, do you know what this means?
I've used it, and now I can't even imagine communicating without it. Spellfast AI, the link is in the description. Bitusha's path to infamy began in his teenage years when he participated in a robbery. It was starting with this episode that his rapidly progressing cruelty was born and slowly developed.
We broke into summer houses and stole everything we could sell. Tools, electronics, even food. That feeling when we managed to get away with it created an addiction. Next were cars, not just stealing them, but dismantling them for parts. I guess you could say I was always looking for the next level, a bigger, riskier game.
The culmination of Bitusha's criminal activities occurred on August 1st, 2020, in the village of Podverii. Just released after 2 months of imprisonment for vandalism, he went to an acquaintance's home to supposedly collect a debt. Witness accounts describe how the argument turned into true horror. Bitusha struck the victim twice on the head, fracturing his skull. While the victim slowly blew out, Bitusha searched his pockets and stole the 20 euros he had. Together with his accomplices, he left the scene, leaving the victim to bleed to death. A death later determined to have been preventable if timely medical assistance had been provided. The Klaipėda District Court's verdict in 2021 precisely characterized the banality of this murder. A human life was extinguished for less than 1 day's wage. Although Bitusha filed an appeal claiming that the victim's girlfriend delayed calling for help, forensic evidence confirmed that the blows he inflicted led to the person's death. The resulting 15-year sentence, his 11th conviction, his release date will come in 2035. He remembers the fatal incident in minute detail and exactly how everything happened down to the smallest details, adding that his intention was not to kill the person, as well as the fact that at that moment he had no idea that the injuries he inflicted on the victim would prove fatal.
I didn't want to kill him. I hit him once on the jaw. He was sitting in front of me just as you are sitting now, and I simply hit him on the jaw. He didn't fall anywhere or bang his head. Blood started flowing from his mouth. That was it. I went home. It seemed that he was alive and just had a split lip. I went home.
Recalling the details of the horrific murder, there is absolutely no remorse visible in his face or tone of voice for what he did, and it sounds more like he was describing not a murder, but rather how he had been at a party. It's already evident what a heartless person is before your eyes. However, throughout the video, you will understand that he is not at all a cold-blooded killer. For him, it was just another robbery, a regular occurrence that, due to carelessness, turned tragic. Donatas found out that he had killed a person only the next day, when in the morning he received a call from a friend who was the first to find the dead man's body in the apartment and who called to inform him about it. At that moment, he realized that he had committed murder. according to Donatus himself. Initially, the forensic experts determined the official cause of death to be that the victim had choked on his own vomit, but later it was revealed that the knocked-out teeth had caused severe bleeding, resulting in the victim bleeding to death overnight. If Donatus had not left and abandoned the victim in a helpless state, his life could have been saved. Answering the question about how he ended up at the victim's residence and how the conflict began, Batusha immediately answers that he was invited there by a friend. There was drinking, and, as often happens under the influence of alcohol, a heated exchange of words began, which resulted in a conflict that escalated into physical aggression. However, Donatus finds his own explanation and defense for why he didn't want to kill, but only rough up his opponent.
If I wanted to beat him up properly and kick him, I would have done so. But I simply hit him. I didn't want to kill him, but what happened, happened.
Further answering the question about why he left the scene, Batusha coolly answers without emotion that he simply saw that after delivering the blow, the other man had started bleeding from his lip, and he thought it was just a normal injury that occurs after being hit in the face, so without suspecting anything bad, he left the scene. He also tells about how he received the information that the person he hit actually died from the injuries sustained. And even while telling all this, there is no remorse apparent in his face or tone of voice.
I thought the bleeding would stop. He would drink some beer, and with the help of alcohol, everything would be fine. And the next morning, I found out that a body had been found. I met a friend. He told me that there's trouble. There's a body. I found out about it around 6 in the morning, and by 4 in the afternoon, I was already arrested.
He then recalls details about his arrest. He remembers to say that the arrest wasn't anything grand and the police didn't even hide, and he himself understood the seriousness of the situation, and that sooner or later he would be arrested, handcuffed, and taken to where he really belongs. There was neither time nor desire to resist and hide. He was arrested while walking around the Kretinga area. He recounts that there were some distorted details in the case and claims that he hit only once, though different information appeared in the case materials at the time, thus trying to emphasize that they deliberately tried to pin a more serious charge on him.
Forensic criminal experts claimed that 3 blows were recorded in the murder episode. But from the first day, I claimed that I hit only once. Witnesses who were in the apartment also said there was only 1 blow, but the criminal expert testified in court about delivering 3 blows.
To prove that his case had been distorted, he mentions an episode from the trial in which the expert in question stood up in court and said the following.
Well, maybe not 3 blows, but there were definitely 2 blows.
The next steps were that Donatus filed an appeal regarding the number of blows attributed to him in the charges, hoping that his prison sentence would thus be reduced. The result of the appeal was partially successful, and he was acquitted, meaning instead of 3 blows, he was now incriminated for delivering only 1 blow, but he didn't get any reduction in his sentence. He only partially achieved what he wanted, and I believe that it doesn't change the essence of the matter anyway, because he had killed a person by inflicting serious bodily harm and leaving, instead of at least calling an ambulance beforehand. Let's continue further. He talks about all his criminal records, how many and how serious the convictions in his life have been.
I have a total of about 14 or 15 convictions, and almost all of them were charges related to violence. Shortly before the murder, I had served my previous sentence in one of the prisons and was released on June 12th, 2020, and already a month later, a corpse. That's how it happened. Yes.
And even while telling about something like this, not a shred of remorse is visible on his face, so the appeal was only and exclusively a desperate attempt to mitigate the sentence, without ever thinking about the pain and suffering that his aggressive, greedy, and impulsive actions had caused to the deceased's loved ones. It should be reminded that the reason for the aggression was a mere 20 euros, and in general, even if it were about larger sums, it's not a reason to extinguish someone's life, even if the intention wasn't to kill, but the result is what it is. And a normal person would certainly sink into deep depression, but not Donatus Batusha. To him, this murder seems like just another everyday problem that again led him to life in prison. In the continuation of the interview, he is asked to tell in more detail about his criminal past or the beginnings of his career as a criminal, which would later progress, thus making him one of the most dangerous criminal elements in Lithuania's modern history.
How old could I have been? The first time I might have been about 12 years old. Yes, 12 years old, when we stole a car from one of my father's friends. Already at 12 years old. In Kretinga, people were afraid of me since I was 10 years old, and no one left their bicycles near stores. Already at that time, How shall I say, I used to misbehave.
Speaking about crimes in childhood and comparing them with later crimes upon reaching the age of 18, Donatas highlights a crucial detail that he believes was a significant turning point leading to the most heinous crimes, including murder. The fact that he returned to Lithuania in 2018, emphasizing that if he had not returned, such a serious crime as murder would not have been committed.
If I hadn't returned to Lithuania in 2018, I probably wouldn't do anything like that anymore. I was in Spain twice. I was in Ireland, England, and also lived in Sweden.
He admits that he was involved in illegal activities abroad as well, but adds that there was also a period when he worked a legal job in Spain, specifically picking oranges, but the compensation for such hard work, which was only 20 euros a day, did not satisfy him at all. He says that he was even detained in Spain, only it wasn't anything serious enough to put him in prison, as his punishment was spending a couple of days in a police station isolation cell. He also tells about the detention procedure and system in Spain, which differs drastically from Lithuania's system.
There in Spain, for example, if you commit a crime, then that's it. Period. They arrest you, take your fingerprints, and in the morning they take you to court. In court, they ask if you have a lawyer. No. Okay, then they find you a lawyer, and that's it, you're free. Next time, I get drunk, commit a violation. In that spirit, I ended up there 3 times.
Bichusha was never actually tried abroad, but there was a possibility that if he were convicted, he would be deported to Lithuania, where he would accordingly serve the sentence that would have been imposed by the Spanish court. As he explains, one theft or some medium-level violation is nothing so special to be convicted for in Spain, but if several of them accumulate, then the above-mentioned scenario can become quite real. But basically, he got off quite lightly, because he hadn't committed anything that would make the police detain him longer and sentence him to actual prison time. Further, talking about his last crime committed in Spain, he adds that he was partially saved by his boss, for whom he was working harvesting oranges at the time. The boss was also Lithuanian and warned him in time that it was time to leave.
He said the police are very active right now. They're already looking for you everywhere. He advised me to disappear. So I stayed in my place at that time for 3 more days until a small van arrived. And that's it.
He then tells about his further experience in England and Ireland, where in a short time he managed to get into serious trouble and problems with the law. In England, he was only able to stay for 6 days and was forced to flee from there because, once again, let's say, he didn't quite manage to live within the bounds of the law, and this time, even the local mass media informed the public about his crimes. Therefore, fleeing from the authorities, he spent 2 weeks in Ireland, Dublin, as well as various Irish villages, hiding from the police. The police had successfully tracked him down, and he had no choice but to flee back to his homeland. He had only 2 choices: to stay abroad and fall into the hands of law enforcement, which would cost him quite a serious prison sentence, or to go to Lithuania, where he could still live a peaceful life at that time. The interviewer had a logical question, namely, where did this desire and passion to constantly break the law come from? His answer is very interesting and explains a lot, and he also explains why, when he gets out, he doesn't intend to change and will continue to commit new crimes.
Actually, it's not even a desire. Most likely it's innate for me to do something bad. Look, here inside I work, even knowing that I'll only be released when I'm 46 years old. I definitely don't plan to work outside afterward. I will continue stealing and continue committing crimes. If I get out now, I have nowhere to go. Where would I go? What would I do?
He doubts that within the remaining 11 years of his sentence, Lithuania's criminal system will evolve to something different. As an alternative upon his release, he mentions returning to Spain, as he considers it the best country. The reasons he mentions include the warm climate and friendly residents, but partly his desire to return to Spain is related to milder penalties for minor law violations, which he had already experienced, and compares them with Lithuania, where, according to him, even for stealing bread, they look at you like a dangerous criminal.
Here in Lithuania, even for stealing a loaf of bread, a seller can chase after you with a knife. But there they don't pay special attention to such things, because maybe the person doesn't have food and simply wants to eat. Maybe he's dying of hunger, but in Spain they understand that. But here is a banana republic. Here is Lithuania.
He also recalls the culture shock he experienced when he was first arrested and taken to a police station isolation cell. There, the police officers even offered him coffee, to which he initially didn't know how to react, thinking they were simply mocking him. Only a moment later, when two other police officers also asked if he happened to want coffee, he nodded affirmatively, and indeed, coffee was brought to him. That was something unprecedented, because as he says, in Lithuanian prisons, such extras are unimaginable, and he adds that in Spain, every person, even if they have broken the law, is treated humanely. He also tells about the detention procedure and system in Spain, which differs drastically from Lithuania's system. As the planned release date for Batusha in 2035 draws nearer, Lithuanian society must confront and address several challenging questions. Will his promises to continue his criminal path really be fulfilled? And more importantly, is the state's internal affairs system ready for drastic changes to prevent such things? As he himself admitted in the interview, committing crimes is innate to him. In other words, it's his identity, something he even takes pride. He likes the feeling when adrenaline is released. He gets it in the process of theft, robbery, and violence, while others get this feeling from, for example, extreme sports. But there are people, like Donatus, who get this feeling from breaking the law and escaping accountability, and such people are very dangerous to society. What do you think? Is it worth letting such people out of prison at all? Or is it better for people with such a tendency towards crime to be given life imprisonment so that normal citizens don't suffer at their hands? Write in the comments.